Right now on Current News, prayer to end the pandemic.
Earlier this month, Pope Francis asked the world to say the Rosary. Today, it's our country's turn. I'm Jessica Easthope, and I'll have more from the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington.
Plus, Holy Land in crisis. The world prays for peace following the deadliest day of conflict.
Every single life that is lost, a Palestinian life, an Israeli life, is a tragedy.
Pope Francis joining the voices calling for calm between Israel and Hamas. Abortion battle. The Supreme Court will hear a controversial case that could affect Roe v. Wade. And a crucifix vandalized in the Diocese of Brooklyn. How the church and NYPD are responding to the act. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. A pandemic prayer echoing from the nation's capital. The United States taking part in the Pope's Rosary Marathon with Cardinal Wilton Gregory leading his congregation at the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. We have team coverage of the prayer service, beginning with Current News' Jessica Easthope, who is in Washington, D.C. Jessica.
Christine, this rosary is offering a renewed sense of hope for people across the country, praying through Mary's intercession for the end of the pandemic. This after COVID-19 has taken nearly 600,000 lives in the United States.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord
One after another, 53 Hail Marys echoed through the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. The Rosary, part of a global call by Pope Francis to dedicate May, Mary's month, for the end of the pandemic. The Rosary started on May 1st in Rome, and over the next month, 30 countries will pray at a Marian shrine for a collective as well as an individual intention. Here in the United States, it's for world leaders.
It's the world leaders who really have control over what's taking place. They're the ones who have put in the shutdown, they're the ones who do the rollout, the opening, and they're the ones who are getting us all vaccinated. And so they have a very important role to play in this entire pandemic situation, and especially bring it to an end.
Lord, have mercy on us.
Monsignor Walter Rossi, the rector of the Basilica, says this is for everyone affected by the pandemic and who felt its profound loss.
Hail Mary, full of grace.
ANTONIETA BERTEH prays the Rosary every single day, but saying it in communion is different, especially after losing her mother to COVID-19 5 months ago.
Very meaningful to me. I really hope, that the intercession of our Blessed Mother will finally end this pandemic that has caused so much pain.
Monday's Rosary was led by Cardinal Wilton Gregory, the Archbishop of Washington, D.C. Nancy BROCKINGTON says she comes to the Basilica for Mass 3 days a week, but couldn't miss saying the Rosary with a church leader she says has paved the way.
I've just heard so much about his career, how he became Catholic at 11 or 12 years old, and just all that he's done throughout the United States for the Catholic Church. And I just admire him so much. I can't wait to actually have a conversation with him one day.
Those who came to pray today are optimistic the pandemic will soon be a thing of the past, especially for those who lost someone. They say this is the power of prayer in action. The Rosary continues tomorrow at Our Lady of Lourdes in France for all doctors and nurses. In Washington, D.C., Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Thanks, Jess. Continuing now with our team coverage from Washington, the national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, John Lavenberg, is also standing by. And John, you were focusing today in part on Cardinal Wilton Gregory. We saw him lead the Rosary. Did he mention any personal intentions?
He did, Christine, and his personal intentions he really focused on. It was very broad, and all those affected by the pandemic, whether it's those that lost a loved one, those that have a sick loved one that they can't visit right now because of safety, those that have uncertain futures, whether it's economically or with their employment, and then also first responders that continue to put their lives on the line every day.
Now we saw traces of Mary everywhere today, from the prayers to the music choices, some statues. The Rosary called upon Mary for help. Why the Mother of God and not another saint?
Cardinal Gregory actually mentioned this recently, and he said we go to Mary like children, and in that sense he also said what mother can ignore babies weeping? And so, and with that, he basically is saying that that's why we need to turn to Mary and ask for her intercession to put an end to this pandemic and help the whole human family.
So true. And in keeping with Mary's month, the Pope requested that these rosaries take place at the Marian shrines throughout the world. Tell us a little about the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. How did the Basilica get chosen?
Sure, and really around the whole world, all of these different shrines, they really show that Mary is with all different nations and all different cultures. And so this one in particular, this is the largest Marian shrine in the United States. And so with that, it's huge, it's grand, it's beautiful, and it not only stands up against those in the United States, but also it's right there with the ones in Europe and around the rest of the world.
You also spent some time talking to people in the shrine. Why did they decide to come? Any personal stories there?
There was, Christine, and one in particular that stands out was a mother who was here with her 2 children. They drove an hour from southern Maryland, and they've been praying the rosary every day since the pandemic began for an end to the pandemic. And they said that, the mother said this was a field trip they took to continue on that journey and join in this worldwide prayer.
That's wonderful. John Lavenberg, the national correspondent for The Tablet and Crocs. Look for his full report on thetablet.org tonight. Thanks again, John.
Thank you.
Also in the nation's capital, the Supreme Court agreed today to hear arguments in a major abortion case. It involves a 2018 Mississippi law banning most abortions after 15 weeks. The law makes exceptions only for medical emergencies. A federal judge struck down the law and an appeals court upheld the judge's ruling. This case could present a direct challenge to Roe v. Wade, the 1973 landmark Supreme Court decision legalizing abortion nationwide. The White House didn't directly comment on the case, but Press Secretary Jen Psaki said President Biden is committed to codifying Roe.
Over the last 4 years, critical rights, like the right to health care, the right to choose, have been under withering and extreme attack, including through draconian state laws. And the president and the vice president are devoted to ensuring that every American has access to health care, including reproductive health care.
The court will likely hear the case in the fall. A ruling could come by June of 2022. Also tonight, brink of war. There's no end in sight to violence between Israel and Hamas.
So we call on Hamas and other groups in Gaza to end the rocket attacks immediately.
Working for peace, political and religious leaders demand an end to the attacks and killing. Currents news with the latest as the Pope joins the growing call for calm. Pope Francis says the recent violence could lead to a spiral of death and destruction. The pontiff calling the deaths of children unacceptable and asking pilgrims to pray for peace. Heavy machinery brought in to clear out the rubble after an Israeli airstrike in Gaza City hit 2 civilian buildings. The medical and civil defense teams say they rescued 5 children alive from under the rubble.
Ave Maria, piena di grazia.
Pope Francis on Sunday voicing his concerns over the violence.
Numerose persone sono rimaste ferite e tanti innocenti sono morti. Tra di loro ci sono anche I bambini. E questo è terribile, è inaccettabile. La loro morte è segno che non si vuole costruire il futuro, ma lo si vuole distruggere.
The Pope has been closely following the increasing tensions in Jerusalem and is calling on Israel and Palestine to open dialogue with one another as soon as possible.
Faccio appello alla calma e a chi ne ha responsabilità di far cessare il frastuono delle armi e di percorrere le vie della pace.
The president also spoke about the conflict as he and the First Lady made remarks on Eid, a religious holiday for Muslims celebrating the end of Ramadan.
We also believe Palestinians and Israelis equally deserve to live in safety and security and enjoy equal measure of freedom, prosperity, and democracy.
President Biden says his administration is going to engage the Palestinians and Israelis to work toward sustained calm. UNICEF is also calling for an end to the clashes, asking for a diplomatic solution for the sake of all children and for their future. At least 55 children in Palestine and 2 children in Israel have been killed from the fighting. The executive director also noting schools and homes have been destroyed and entire families have been displaced. The fighting sees its deadliest day with 52 people killed Sunday. The death toll in Gaza increasing to nearly 200 after 2 weeks of clashes. Hadass Gold has more from Ashdod.
I'm in Ashdod, which is a city just over 15 miles north of the Gaza Strip. This is the city that the Israeli military says has received the highest number of red alert sirens indicating the possibility of incoming rocket attack. Israeli military is saying more than 3,100 rockets have been launched from Gaza into Israel. The Israeli military is saying that it is responding by targeting at least 1,500 militant targets in the Gaza Strip, including buildings that they say have housed Hamas commanders and have been weapons storage facilities. In the last few hours, the Israeli military also saying that it is targeting a network of tunnels that they call the Hamas Metro. They say this is how Hamas militants have been traveling through the Gaza Strip. They also say it's used as places to store weapons as well as sort of operational command centers within these tunnels. The Israeli military is saying that they have proof showing that these tunnels are located next to civilian infrastructure, including kindergartens and a mosque. But the death and the destruction in Gaza and in Israel has been rising with each passing day. Yesterday, the Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza says it was the deadliest day in Gaza, saying right now the death toll stands at 197 Palestinians killed in this conflict, including at least 58 of them being children. In Israel, 10 Israelis have been killed, including 2 children and a soldier. And although we know that diplomatic efforts are underway in several arenas to try and figure out a solution, to try and bring some calm to the region, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu telling the country in an address yesterday that the operation will continue for some time until they reach their military objectives. Hadass Gold, Ashdod.
Christians in Jerusalem are joining the Pope's prayers for peace caught in the middle of the airstrikes and rocket attacks. One priest is describing the situation in the Holy City.
It has been getting worse and worse. We have been hearing gunfire for 3 nights now, several missiles and bombings, and that is why we are very concerned. We don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of uncertainty.
The priest also says there are signs of hope, such as a mass held for the Feast of the Ascension, which united the small Christian community in the area to pray for an end to the violence. Coming up on Currents News, another priest who is experiencing the fighting firsthand. He says the clashes are like nothing he's ever seen before. That's still ahead in this newscast. There's a lot more news headed your way. A crucifix destroyed, an American flag burned. Now police have video of a person they say is connected. A look at the suspect ahead. Hundreds of thousands are still getting COVID-19 daily in India, but the government seems fixated on another project not connected to the pandemic. And why John Kerry was granted a closed-door meeting with the Pope. And coming up on Tuesday, grocery store prices are soaring.
Definitely noticeable how prices are higher.
And prices could climb even more.
Frankly, this is going to go on for a while.
Families are struggling to put food on the table. What can you do to save on your grocery bills? Join us for a Currents News special report, Supermarket Shock, Tuesday at 7. The Diocese of Brooklyn is asking the NYPD to step up patrols after 2 acts of vandalism. Most recently, a statue depicting the Virgin Mary and her son Jesus was defaced over the weekend in front of the offices of the diocese. The head of the baby Jesus was knocked off completely. The vandalism is being investigated as a hate crime, and the diocese is working to restore the statue to its original form. Meantime, police are on the hunt for the suspect who tore down an image of Christ on the cross at St. ATHANASIUS Church in Bensonhurst. The NYPD releasing this video of a man they say was part of the incident. The church's crucifix was smashed and their American flag outside was burned. Monsignor David Cassato, the church's pastor, says the reaction from the parish has been an outpouring of help and support. Monsignor saying a prayer vigil happening mere hours after the incident was only the tip of the iceberg.
Out of the evil came a tremendous amount of good. People have stepped forward and said they want to help to rebuild. I mean, and it's been miraculous how many people have called, I want to help, I want to help, I want to help.
If you'd like to help rebuild the image of Christ's crucifixion, head on over to GoFundMe.com and search Help Restore St. Athanasius Church. Getting back to one of our top stories, it was the deadliest day in Gaza as the conflict rages on between Israel and Hamas. Father RAFIC NAHRA, Latin Patriarchal Vicar for the Hebrew-speaking Catholics in Israel and Vicar for the migrants and asylum seekers, is watching with his own eyes as the violence unfolds in the Holy Land. He joins us now from Jerusalem. Father, can you just describe to us what you've been experiencing and what's going on there right now?
Well, it's already a few days that we are living something that was really unexpected, to tell the truth. Well, unfortunately, the war between Gaza and Israel has happened several times already. So this is not the big surprise, but the big surprise was inside Israel. All these conflicts between Arabs and Jews. This is something new. And you know, since 2010, there were troubles in 2010, but since then, relationships were getting better. And suddenly there is this explosion of violence and fear. To tell the truth, today, when I am of Arab origin and I have many Jewish friends, but there was a funeral a few days ago, and when I arrived at the beginning and they heard my name, I saw on the look of people there as if, oh, there is a danger. This didn't happen before. So I think that something, this is something unexpected.
I want to pull up some of the pictures you sent to us earlier. There's a couple with children on a staircase. What are we looking at? Talk about that.
Yeah. So, you know, the children, this is in the city Ashdod, where there are too many missiles. You know, and this is the first time that there is this intensity of missiles. So not everybody has shelters, and every time that there is a siren, everybody has to go out of the house, to run to the shelter. So here you see children sitting on the stairs because they have no place to hide. And and in Gaza, you can imagine that it's much worse, unfortunately.
I know we keep calling it a conflict, but you said the word before. Is this a war?
I don't want to believe it. I think that really this violence is manipulated. What I hope is that the great majority, the silent majority, who fears in these moments, will be able to do the necessary in order to re-establish the confidence. You know, there are nice things that are done. I saw a short video 2 days ago of many doctors in Israel, Arabs and Jews, saying this violence, it's not me. I don't agree with this violence. We want to live together.
So how do you see this ending, if ever? Is there a way to build bridges?
You know, it's very easy to destroy. We saw this tower in Gaza, you know, that was built during I don't know how many years and was destroyed in a few seconds. So it's very easy to destroy peace. It's much more difficult to build it. But what I believe as a Christian is that our mission is to always try once again to start to rebuild relationships. And I think that many people want to do it. Most people in Israel want to live together in good conditions.
All right, Father RAFIC NAHRA, Latin Patriarchal Vicar for the Hebrew-speaking Catholics in Israel. Thanks for your time and stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
India continues to be ravaged by a devastating second wave of the coronavirus. And despite running short on vaccines and medical supplies, the country's ruling party is moving forward with a controversial project to revamp their parliament building. Vidika Sood has more from New Delhi.
December of last year, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi lays the foundation stone for a new parliament.
Ek Bharat.
A grand and ambitious project to replace the current building constructed during the era of British rule by 2022. But on the same day, India recorded almost 30,000 new COVID cases, with worse to come. The ongoing construction has become increasingly controversial at a time when India has shattered global records, repeatedly crossing 400,000 new daily cases of COVID-19 while running short on vaccines.
You can't be building a wonderful new imperial capital, as it were, when you are also claiming that you don't have enough money to buy vaccines and give them free to everybody.
A staggering $2.7 billion of taxpayers' money will be used for the Central Vista project, which will also include a new home for India's Prime Minister and Vice President. The opposition Congress party claims this money could be spent instead to inoculate almost 620 million people. The Indian government is already under pressure for allegedly mishandling the virus. Constructing a new seat of power at a time as sensitive as this could add to the existing public anger. Vedika Sood, Delhi.
COVID-related scams are plaguing the people of India. Within the past month, police arrested more than 210 people for coronavirus-related fraud. And just recently, authorities busted a business that had been repainting fire extinguishers and selling them as oxygen canisters. Amid the crisis in India, Pope Francis donated nearly $25,000 to Catholic University's Marathon of Solidarity conference. The money will go towards the Shanti Ashram Women's Center in southern India, which provides food and medical assistance to 50,000 children and families in rural villages. The Pope met privately with U.S. Special Envoy for Climate Change John Kerry. The two spoke about the environment during their closed-door meeting. Kerry says the pontiff is one of the most powerful voices on the planet in facing the climate crisis. The Holy Father intends to take part in the COP26 climate conference in Glasgow this November. Their meeting comes near the 6th anniversary of Pope Francis's book on climate change, Laudato Si'. Still to come on Currents News, the Youth Religious Awards makes a comeback in the Diocese of Brooklyn, and Pope Francis praises Catholic Scouts for their noble mission. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Scouts in the diocese were honored during the Youth Religious Awards. The socially distanced ceremony was held at Our Lady of Angels Church in Bay Ridge Sunday. It recognized the spiritual growth of Boy and Girl Scouts in the diocese. The ceremony and recognition dinner did not take place last year because of the pandemic. Over at the Vatican, Pope Francis praised a group of young scouts for leading lives filled with hope, celebrating the 50th anniversary of a French Catholic scouting organization. The pontiff told the group of young women and men that as Catholic scouts, they have a noble mission to witness the gospel with their faith, service, and care. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.